Welcome back to another episode of the Landscaping Podcast, brought to you by myself, Shay Brickhouse, and Zach Small. And we're going to talk to you about the landscaping industry today and a few things that I have found on the internet that have struck me due to some things we've seen in our company in the past, what we have experienced in the company, things that I have witnessed from the journeyman to the leader to the CEO, all throughout the industry, and with conversations with other landscape companies. And so this article that I came across really hit me to the heart, and I think is true in its nature across many industries, not just the landscaping industry. So I'm going to read you a little bit out of this, and within it there's 4 bullet points that we're going to kind of touch. So bear with me for just a second. I'm going to read you one small section paragraph and why it stuck with me, and I'll break it all down and explain it. This article talks about training employees and your return on investment. And that's a subject that really hits me because this industry is very much go, 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 and you don't have a ton of time to do the training. And so that is an issue because you're sending guys out there that aren't trained, and then you're expecting them to do trained work. Also means that your production is going to be lower because, they're not trained, so they're going to take longer to do it, and they're probably going to break some equipment along the way. So I want to talk to you about that. So I'm going to read you a little bit out of this article that I stumbled across, and then we're going to hit these 4 bullet points to go over all of those things and break them down into a little bit of detail. So one article, or part of this article, says many companies struggle to invest in formal training because new hires often leave before the business can see a return on that investment, leading to a cycle of reactive scrambling and lost productivity. And that is exactly what it does. Mm-hmm. It is, if you don't train them, they cost you money because it takes longer, because they break stuff. And then if they decide to leave you, 2 weeks after you train them, you didn't get your return on investment. And so therefore you're like, I spent all this time training them and now they're gone. I think the oldest saying to that is, what if I train them and they leave? Mm-hmm. When on the reverse side of that, it's like, what if I don't train them and they stay? I know one of my uncles helps us out a lot, and we always have talked about this over the past few years, and one reason why 2026 comes up, it's January right now in 2026, and we're getting ready to amp up this training thing. We've started in 2025, but within that conversation is very much a dialogue of where we're going and how we're going to increase our training so that this article becomes an article of the past and where we can kind of rewrite the future for our company and hopefully institute a way for other landscape companies in the industry to change the way they train so that they can get their return on investments. They can have the professional training so that companies have employees that are suitable for the job.
Yeah, it's interesting that, when you go to landscaping, there's no barrier to entry. And so I realized when we were having this conversation, that's one of the first times I recognized this is the first time I've been in the profession where the people weren't already skilled.
Yeah.
And so in the military, obviously teens are joining, we don't know what we're doing, but you go to a boot camp, then you go to a school. And so when you go somewhere, you know your job. And then every job I've had since then, you had to already have the skills to start the job. Here, you can start without the skills, but learning them. And so they might have some awareness to mowing and weed eating, but we do so much more that everything else is taught. So they really are coming into this not knowing anything that we really need them to know. For the most part, there are a few who come in who are absolute studs. They've been doing it for years, yep. And they find maybe they move to the area, or the company they were with shuts down, or they just don't have a place for them, and they come on over. And so we've had that happen too. But a lot of these guys are coming in and they're learning hardscape for the first time. And so how to have a structured program of somebody who's coming in that's an adult, a professional, but knows nothing as to what you need them to know. And if you teach them everything, well, what's the cutoff to going somewhere else? They got skills here, they can go and do something else. And so the concern or the thought, I don't think that's something you go through in most other professions. So it's very unique to this industry, kind of the obstacles we're facing there.
Yeah. So you're talking about onboarding, and then one of these bullet points on this article talks about how we fail at onboarding because we're so go, 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 and we have to be on the job, and so you're training on the job. However, when you get to the job, you also don't have time to do the training because you need to get the production done so you can get on to the next one. And everything that you came into and every job you've had before this and this industry, and not just this industry, it's a problem, I think, in a ton of trades industries. is that you're so busy you don't have time to do the training. But you've always had the skill set required for every job you've had, and that's why you got the job. And then when you got there, you were proficient in it. You were able to go and, you know, just hit every task you needed with efficiency, and everyone knew what you were doing. And you didn't have to have all this extensive onboarding of this is what you need to do, this is how you do it, because you already knew that. And I think you had a pretty clear-cut onboarding system of, hey, when you start, this is what you're doing. In our industry, we don't really have that as much. It's you come in, like, you know kind of the job you're doing, but every job's so different because we do so much that it's like, all right, today you're using the power rake. Tomorrow you're using the zero turn. The next day you're not using none of that. You're using just a brick saw. And so it's, you know, you're very much have to know each little bitty task. You have to know, you know, so much. So we talk about education as well, and how we have to be extremely educated in this industry to do what it is we do, because there's a lot to know. But if you're learning on the job, it's a lot to teach in between doing the job. And so onboarding here, we fail as an industry on onboarding with our employees and making sure that they know everything you need them to know. And the reason we do that is because we're just in such a rush and a hurry. And for us, like I said, in the past, I've seen that as a failure for our company, and I see it as a failure for many companies. We don't spend enough time training. And so it's January 2026, and we're moving forward. Now we're going to be making sure we spend more time training, because it's certainly going to be something that, you know, we need to do for the company to succeed, to have better trained employees, to kind of change the perspective of the industry, and hopefully other companies will do that too, to make sure we have professionals out there.
You know, I think that the fact that we're trying, I think that's really what's going to set the precedent, is other people are going to see, all right, well, they're trying to do something. Like, how do you do this for a landscaping company that's going out around all of Beaufort County and beyond on all these different types of jobs, in federal, in military, and everything I've experienced prior to this, in teaching, everything prior to this, there's like a whole week of onboarding. There's a whole week where I'm getting paid and I'm going to they're walking you through PowerPoints, they're giving you all the forms, they're showing you everything you're going to do, what to dress, where to go, what it all looks like. I once worked at a glass factory, and very briefly, but the first like 3 days, they walked you around the facility, they showed you all the tools, they sat you down, they did the safety discussions, they issued you your equipment. And dude, like, everywhere else you have days to weeks of onboarding before it's go time. Whereas here, if you get hired on like a Friday and you show up on Monday, we are operating. We don't have like a admin department to put you in for a week for you to walk around. Like, you jump on with the crew and you learn the job. And so to try to like formalize it to that level, I don't know, can be done in this industry. I think that's what draws certain people to this industry, because it's not as structured and like formal as a corporate America. But at the same time, the fact that we're trying to create a system that does address the awareness and need that new hires need some sort of like getting their feet running before they're actually on the ground running. I think the courses is going to be fantastic this year. We've already come up with the handbook. We've already come up with the options to try to have something available to all employees so they can refer to it, so they know the answers to the questions, and it'll help them with that process. But I'm not sure if we're ever going to have a fully formal, established onboarding. But I think what we're doing is good enough for this type of industry.
Yeah,
what we're trying to do.
Yeah, I don't think there's no way we could sit down and have for 1 week.
Yeah, it's crazy.
This is what
and honestly,
do.
I don't think I wouldn't want it again.
Yeah, I mean,
I want to die in those.
But I do think that as an industry, you know, and one of the reasons why when I read this article, it like hit me so hard is because like it's true. Like, all these things are true. We do fail as an industry on training, and it's very much you learn it on the job. And if you don't get it, you're out. And sometimes as an employer, that's you failing your employee because you didn't train them. So you expected them to do something that you did not train them to do, and they failed at it. And so then you got rid of them, when really you should get rid of yourself and say, hey, train them a little better so that they know what to do. But I think we're going to do, or what we're trying to do, is hit that good blended merge there.
There's a sweet spot. There is a sweet spot
of hitting that, you know, white collar, blue collar orientation period where it's, you know, we spend a little more time on that training. We make these videos. We give them the links of, hey, watch these things on onboarding so that, you know, these are the bare requirements. And then it's like, all right, if this is the crew you're on here, these are the things you need to know for that crew. When you're doing this job, these are the things you need to know that crew, to do that job. And give them access to all these videos, all these trainings, so that they can see it and learn it. Because if they don't have the information, then they don't know what they're expected to do. And I think, another bullet point that really, really hits hard is you spend all this time training, and as soon as you get done, the guys leave before they actually do all the work, and you actually start making dollars off of them. I've had it happen for me. My father's had it happen to him. And so I think that has plagued the industry with every time we try to do this, they leave. And it's like, well, I think I'd rather do that than have them out there not knowing.
Yeah.
But I mean, I just so recently, as much as a year ago, took somebody to some classes, paid for all the classes. We drove out there, we went through all these training seminars, told him what I thought, he could do. And then 2 weeks later, I get a notice of I'm going, for another job for a few cents. It's a few dollars, but more an hour. And it's like, man, I wish I had known that before I spent all this time training you, because I wouldn't have wasted my time. I would have pulled somebody else with me.
I think one of the parts of that too, like the other side of that is as you're training up the employee, also painting like the future. And I think we're doing well with that, with this being a career, not just a job. It's like, hey, you're getting like in this company, there's paths to grow. Where some, and we dropped a video, and if you guys haven't listened to it already, we were talking about from laborer to leader, how like just because you're hired on as like the weed eating guy or the mowing guy, or you're hired on as the labor guy with the hardscape, like that's not where you stay. And so as long as they see that vision, like, oh, I'm going to this school because I can get promoted, like in every other industry, that's usually how that works.
Yep.
You get the certification, you can get the next pay raise, you do the next ability, or you do enough good jobs together that you just get bumped up, in whatever your responsibilities are and whatnot. And I think if you have that vision, it's not, well, I'm going to run away for the dollar, because you can make an extra $10 here by waiting a little bit longer and putting the skills you just learned to use.
That's right.
And so that's how you really bump up and become an asset to this team. And so I think the painting of that picture and us keeping that message going will help. But in this industry, I've never seen turnover like this. And I've spoken to you about that. Yeah. We've had those discussions. It's like such a high turnover, and not just us. On every single landscaping company, I've seen them swap teams and people coming out. We've got a pretty good core going right now, and I dig it. And I'm like, cool, like we can do a lot of things. And I'm hoping that they're seeing the vision we're seeing, and from all our conversations they are. But it's one of those things where the green industry, people can jump in and they swap and move so quickly. Yep. And it's such a unique thing that we're dealing with here, because you really do have to think about, am I going to invest thousands of dollars into the education and growth of this individual, which takes away from you doing that to another individual, for them to go somewhere else?
Yeah.
And so like there has to be signals. I'm not sure what you look for. And maybe another podcast we can address like the signs of somebody who's in it to win it and somebody who's kind of in it for now. But there's got to be things you see that kind of raise the green flags of like, yeah, this guy's worth going to wherever.
Yeah. I mean, when we hire people, you ask them for their previous job experience, and they tell you, oh, I worked for such and such lawn care. I've done this for X amount of years. You hire them thinking they know everything. And so when you get them on, you're like, all right, I don't have to train him because he knows what he's doing. However, more often than not, they don't know. And so if we had that orientation period, we could have showed them, hey, this is the way our company does it.
Yep.
So just because you knew it over there, well, they did things completely different than what we do then. Matter of fact, I don't know how they're still in business for doing them that way. And so it's like, you want to retrain, you want to get rid of all the bad habits, make sure they see just the habits that you want, and operate the way that your company wants to operate. So that orientation period would be important. And as an industry, you talk about turnover rate. We've had, I've had as many as 52 people, turnover in a year. Granted, we were doing some large scale contracts where it took a mass number of employees. And so it was nothing for me to have one a week just turn over.
Yep.
And it was hard work. So, a lot of these guys, in our industry, for one, this industry is very large. It's needed on just about every property. Everything we do is everything outside. So what we can do, or what the landscape industry can do, is very vast, which means that you're doing some hard work and you're doing some work that takes a certain amount of skill and a little bit of knowledge. With that, you're pulling employees that are using this as a fallback rather than something that they look at as a career.
Yep.
And so sometimes these high turnover rates come from, you're pulling an employee who's looking at this as a fallback job, and then when they get here, they realize, oh man, he's wanting me to do, more and more and more, and I could get paid more, but I don't have that skill set. So they leave out, or they leave the job without letting you know, and now you're your employee turnover rate goes over. And it's not so much the fact that the industry alone is bad. It's a lot of times the employees you're hiring, or you're pulling them from a pool that they think this is just cutting grass.
Yep.
So that's what they come in expecting. They get here and realize
far more.
Oh man, this is way more than that. And so you haven't hired the employee you want because they don't know what landscaping is, which is why we're doing this podcast, why our socials are on fire, because we want everyone to know that this industry is far more than that.
Yep.
And so we can get different employees because they'll look at it differently. When someone sees a podcast about landscaping and how much we talk about the industry as an industry and not just as a job or weekend thing, they'll see, hey, man, that's a career there. There's a whole lot
potential for longevity.
Yeah. So that's definitely one of those things where the training comes into that. Because if you're investing time into someone, you're training them, well then for one, they're looking at it as, man, this is a job. This is a career.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not training them and you're just expecting them to go out, they look at it as it's a fallback, because obviously if there's no training, there's no skill.
Yep.
Well, there's a ton of skill needed for this job, so you need to do a lot of training.
More than anybody will ever know.
We have talked about lack of formal onboarding, or onboarding just being one of those things that in our industry we don't do. So that's bullet point number 1 that we've touched on, that in this article really hit me because it's true. And so we want to change that. We've started working on changing that. Bullet point 2 is productivity versus training and the conflict that has. Return on investment versus the job getting done on time. So you're not able to, spend the time training because you need to get the job done. So we've talked about that and how that's an issue. We're go all the time, and we sometimes the training would just slow the job down. However, on the reverse side of that, if you spent the time training, the productivity would increase.
Mm-hmm.
So take that production loss one time and then increase it every other time. So bullet point 3 in this article, they have it listed as the loss of hands-on expertise. And so what that means is, the more we shift and trend towards this online world we live in, where everything's digital, and we're doing that. We're making everything digital, so this fits what we're getting ready to say. There's a ton of online training videos and online classes and online orientation. And for me, I've got my landscape contractor's license, my irrigation contractor's license, and my North Carolina pesticide license. And a lot of these trainings I can get online. Mm-hmm. So you're losing the hands-on experience of that and the expertise of that, where sometimes you can't learn stuff online. Now we're creating our own online class because we see a need for that and how that would help in certain instances. However, we also know there needs to be some hands-on stuff, because not everybody learns from watching the video. If that was the case, I think everybody would be nuclear physicists.
Yeah, I was
going
to say, for the most part,
yeah.
I don't think we do enough credit to those who would just do far better to just be able to take something apart, put it back together, break it, try to fix it. Like, we need more of that in schools. We need more of that everywhere.
Yep. And so, we're guilty of, just watch this video, and you know how to do it. Well, yeah, that'll get you the gist of it. However, you still have to have someone show you how to do it. Certain people need you to put their hands on that job. I'm reverting back to our brick job here, picking the hands up. So, but I mean, it's some people need you to just show them hands-on how it works. For example, I've got a video that I'm trying to create on a power rake, and I want to go over all the ways to set a power rake up to do the many things that it can do. And I can make that video, I think, all day long, and it'll get someone 75%. But until I get them in the tractor and actually show them adjustments, I don't think they'll understand it to the full extent that I want the video to show. So there's a lack of hands-on experience or hands-on training because we are going full digital as the industry. That's the industry seeing that. You're seeing it because we're on the social media platforms now. Our podcast is digital. It's out there for everyone to listen to. But we also have to make sure we keep just enough hands-on training that we don't let anyone fall through the cracks on their training and how they learn. Zach's always used the example of in a school, you can't judge me based off my ability to swim if I'm a monkey meant to climb trees.
Yep.
So
no, it's real, man. Yeah. So looking at that, there's the theory and there's the application. My son plays baseball. You play baseball. I never played baseball.
Yeah.
But
I was on the team.
Go football. If you can grab a book and you can read about how do you hold the ball. You can read about where to put your finger. You can read about where to put your thumb, how to put you can read about all of that. And that's going to help you to know I should grab the ball and do this. But you're not going to throw a good pitch until you get on the mound, you grab the ball, and you throw the pitch, because feeling it is totally different than knowing it. So you can understand the theory. And I think the internet, the electronics, technology, it all has a place in landscaping. And I'm very grateful to you and for what we're doing here, because you saw my, like, I remember pointing, I was like, there's a place for this, like, for photography and videos and like all this stuff that, like, my background, I'm like, this would fit so well here to tell this story, because it's like another tool. It's another tool that we're using, but it's not the only tool. And so there's like the power rake. That's a great tool, but it's not the only tool. But it is a great tool for what it's meant to do. The digital side of our house, the company, the digital side is a tool used to educate and make people aware, to make the public aware, our employees. We're going to have these videos for them to watch. But listen, it's not the only tool. The other tool is the application. It's going out and doing the thing. It's grabbing the bricks. It's using the saw. You know, we can run a video on all the parts of the power rake. And when that person shows up to use it, they're going to be more confident to learn it. Because they're like, all right, I know what the power rake is, so I know what it looks like. I know that these levers, I know these things that do it. Now you got to show me how to make it do it. And that bridge there is, I think, the confidence is going to be built. I mean, if we have a video that shows, here's where the office is, and here's how you do this, and here's where you grab that, and here's where our tools are, people will show up to work like, all right, I know where the office is, I know where the tools, I don't know how to do everything, but I know it. And I've learned people's fear, it creates an insecurity. They're afraid to do something because they don't want to look stupid, and so they're not going to go out and try it. These videos are going to help them know what the tool looks like, where to find it, how it's supposed to work. So it gets rid of their insecurity around that, and they can just say, all right, now I just need to learn. And as long as we push the message, which we're going to do, that we don't expect you to know everything, we expect you to be ready to listen and learn, then you're going to find success here, because you're confident, because of the videos. You've already been built up. You know who to talk to. You know what your team looks like. You know what they stand for. You know their values. You know who they are as a company, like what their identity is. And now you're going to go learn the skills with them. All of that was brought by the online world. You aren't a good landscaper because of that. You're just a more confident person. You become a good landscaper and hardscaper once you start the job. I will tell you, I had zero background. I can operate all the equipment here. I know what the stuff is called, what it looks like. I've learned the proper use of tools. Everything's a hammer. I've learned all these things along the way. I've learned the theory. I learned about water, irrigation, how all these systems work, pesticide, our chemical program, plants. I've learned so much. I knew none of that before. I didn't learn that online. I learned that by getting my hands dirty, the blood, sweat, no tears. We don't cry here, but we do. There's a lot of blood, a lot of sweat. I'm just kidding, not a lot of blood. But we go out and we do a lot of work. You know, we do such a wide array of jobs, and just to be touching all those things, you can't help but learn. I mean, sometimes you're learning by osmosis, because like Shay will go down and do the intricate part that none of us, you know, he has the certifications, the licenses. He can go on and like make the system work the way it's supposed to. And then you watch it and you're like, oh, I know how to do that now. Like, there are certain irrigation fixes I can do, I've never done, but I know how to do them because I watched you fix the box with some of our clients. I watched you fix the heads. And so, like, I never did that, but I know what you did because I watched. And so now I know even more without even having touched it. That wasn't online, man. That was like being in person. Yeah. And so I think the virtual side has a place, but I don't think our guys or anybody watching this who's considering like, hey, I like that team, you're never going to be expected to know everything off the video, but you're going to be expected to at least be aware of what you're getting into. And so that's why we're not going to have team members, you know, I'm not going to say employees, people on the team who are going to show up and like realize, oh, you do more than cut grass? Bro, if you haven't seen the videos at this point, if you haven't figured it out by now, like, yeah, you're not just going to sit in a mower. There's a lot more to this. You should want that, because, I mean, I would go crazy just sitting on a mower. Like, but being able to learn this entire industry, like, those are life skills that are going to take me far beyond, you know, just the ability to sit and get a paycheck.
Hands-on experience, you know, you're talking about the irrigation that you've watched me diagnose. I'm thinking of one that we traced wires for a couple hours from a lightning strike.
Dude, I wasn't even thinking of that one, but yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't, you know, I learned that from watching someone else trace wires, and how you have to systematically diagnose that job or that problem, you know, on the job. And there's no amount of training you can do that will explain that to you, where you're going to get it right to begin with. I mean, you can learn how to diagnose, you know, a short circuit or a loose end or something like that. But until you actually go out and use the locators and have someone show you on the job how it works, and how, when you get a certain reading, to pick a different way to do it, it's tough to learn that without on the job experience. And so, you know, you saying you could go back and fix some things that you haven't technically fixed yet, but you could do it because you saw me do it. Then that's, you know, that's the hands-on side. You were there, you physically saw it happening, so now you know how to do it. so to sum up bullet point 3 is you have to blend. I think you have to blend this online training with the hands-on, and if you don't have some hands-on, some of your guys just won't get it.
Yep.
I mean, I'm guilty of when I'm talking to some of the guys in the morning, I'm explaining it, and in my head I've got it because I've done it, and I'm looking at them and I'm going, they didn't understand that.
1,000-yard stare.
Yeah, I'm like, they didn't comprehend what I told them. But then I could go to the job and I could take 10 minutes and show them, and boy, they got it as well as I do. And when I leave, I come back and I'm like, cool, you got it. However, had I sent them with just what I explained to them, just as if they were watching the video, they probably wouldn't have understood it.
You know, to look at the inverse of that also, we're really heavy on the hands-on side of it,
Yeah.
but also understanding the theory. You can't make enough videos for what you're going to face in the field.
Yeah.
Because it's never the same. Every property we go to, like the problem we're solving, obviously for the client, is changing. So even if it's like install a patio, installing a patio is not just installing a patio, because each one you're dealing with different soil types,
Yeah.
different bricks, different needs of the customer, different heights. And so even in that goes back actually to the theory, because if you can at least understand, like let's say irrigation, if you understand how water works, well, if you've got to drain the line, you can't start at the highest head. You've got to go to the lowest, because all the water in the lines has to go, gravity's going to bring it. If you understand the theory of how that works, well, now it's no longer the hands-on, it's understanding the concept. And so here, one thing I really enjoy about this, and it's partly my personality, but it's also just the fact that it's how we operate, is we do a lot of explaining. You explain very well to all of us how these things work. Even some of the other guys, their experiences at other companies, like, hey, we used to do it this way because of this, and it works because of that. And so we're learning, and we're all getting smarter. And so, again, to break down that stereotype of landscapers just being knuckle draggers, cavemen walking around, we're actually sharing theory, like scientific theory. We're sharing physics, laws of nature. We're talking about all these things because we work out in the world. And so we're swapping notes, and we're all getting actually pretty smart at this.
All right, so a real quick recap on the bullet points here. 1, we've got lack of formal onboarding. 2, productivity versus training. And 3, loss of hands-on expertise versus the online training, and basically how we need to blend those together to really get all the guys trained up. Now, the 4th bullet point is something that I think a lot of people don't think about, and how it's going to affect your company. We've had this discussion a whole lot, and I've talked to you about, my outlook on this. And so when I saw this as a bullet point, it hit me. And it is inadequate leadership training. And when I read that, it's not just that. It is far more than just leadership training and the lack of training when you move people to leadership things. So what this is to me is you take someone who's been in your company, they've gone to all the training classes, they've done everything they need to get a raise, they've done everything they need to get a promotion because they've got the skills. However, you didn't spend any time teaching them how to lead. You spent all your time training them how to make the perfect cut, how to take your measurements, how to set the grade, how to set your screed rails, how to make sure you have no imperfections or anything that's going to settle, how to operate the equipment. You showed them all of that, but you didn't tell them or teach them or train them on how to take all of the guys they're now going to lead and teach them all of that. And so I've referred to this, and I've heard it on a podcast before. I can't remember where it came from, so I'm giving credit to whoever said this first. So it's the curse of knowledge. And what the curse of knowledge is the fact that as you move up into promotions and higher roles, you feel like, or you think that everyone below you should already know everything that you know. And the reason you think that is because you're going, well, if I'm here, they should know what I knew, when I was in that position. But you have to remember that as you moved up in ranks, or you moved up and you got more promotions, everything you learned from somebody or something, whether it's an online class or online training, something that you used as a tool, or someone spent time with you and trained you, you learn all that. Mm-hmm. So the curse of knowledge is when you move up, you feel like everyone should know everything that's below you. They should know all the way up to what you know. And the problem is they don't, because someone showed you So you have to show them. And so if you're taking your skilled laborer and you're moving them up into a leadership position, then that person has to know how to train the guy below them so that they now know everything that he knew in order to get the job done. If you don't let that person, if you don't train the leader how to lead so he can show the craftsmen, because that's what we are, we're craftsmen out there, and show them how to do the job that he once did, then you've failed that crew, because now that crew doesn't have the skills they once had, because that person's now in the leadership position and will probably be running multiple jobs, so he's not there to do the skilled labor part. You're also failing the leader, because as you moved him up, you failed to train him on how to lead. And so you have to make sure you train the leader, and that the leader can train the skilled labor to be more skilled, so that as your company grows, you can keep moving everybody up and promoting within. And that's how the company will grow and be successful. In our industry, large landscape companies that get large really fast usually fail really quick. And it's due to this curse of knowledge of where they're just promoting people because they need them in different roles. And then everyone as they continue to grow and come on board, they become less and less and less and less intelligent or less efficient, because you move so fast you forgot to say, hey, when you move up, you need to make sure the guy below you also knows everything you knew. If you promote too soon, then what happens is nobody gets trained the way they should. And you tie all of these bullet points together and do them all simultaneously, and you won't have that problem.
You know, they say that leaders are born, they're not made. And I think, I understand the point of it. I think some people are born more comfortable being in front and being the example. Like, they don't fear that, and they don't fear the judgment that comes with it. And so there is an element to this that, yes, there are leaders who just are naturally have those talents. But leadership's a skill. Yep. And like any muscle, it can be built. And so somebody who may not speak very well, they might be a great leader. They just got to work with their speaking. So they are a good leader. They just got to work on that part of it. For others, you know, the skilled craftsman, if you are to look at a landscape company that's hiring from within, so you're looking to build and promote your own, you know, then there has to be a prioritization of the intangibles. Things like empathy. Nobody talks about empathy. Empathy is the ability to feel and connect with another. You know, be able to put yourself in their shoes and like literally kind of see the world from those shoes. That's a skill that leaders must have, because when you're leading individuals, you have to understand that this is not the military. These are not robots. These are people. These are people who can just leave. And so if we're going to go back to the other point and say we don't want the turnover rate to be as high as it is across the industry with other companies, we want ours to be better, well, then we've got to treat our people better, which is not just like numbers. Because if they're just a number here, they're just number there, they're just number there, there's nothing special at Landscaping Unlimited. And so with Landscaping Unlimited, we see the people. We have many conversations that are talking about nothing to do with landscaping, everything to do with the individual and what they're going through and what they need and kind of where they're at. Not at the point where it's detrimental to the company. You know, but this is building up individuals. These are the car rides, you know, hopping in the truck, not just talking about sports, you're talking like, hey, like, where are you at? Like, what do you need? Year-end reviews, having discussions like, hey, where are you guys at? How did you think the year went? What are you looking for next year? All right, what are your thoughts on how we can get there? Sitting down and explaining to the guys, hey, I see this and I'm noticing this pattern. They're like, oh, I didn't even know. Like, yeah, well, it's cool. Like, I understand, but I'm seeing this pattern behind you. And I noticed, here's something I did when I was in those shoes, you know, and I was facing the same thing. And you're talking about things that are landscaping, but they're not. You're talking about skill sets that are leadership, but they're not. They're people skills. They're the ability to connect with others. And so when you get that craftsman who's very good at building, and you get him up and he's ready to go lead the way, you know, even if he did teach the person to fill his spot, so he's got a good motivator behind him that's good at the job. But if they're like, hey, man, like, my kid's sick, they're like, hey, get the job done. Like, bro, I just told you my kid, and you treated me, you completely blew me off. Like, you got to treat that leader like, hey, man, you're going to have people coming to you with family issues now, because now you're a leader. You didn't see it before. You didn't have to deal with this before because you weren't in that position. Now that you're elevated, you're going to have people coming to you with sick kids, things you got to take care of at home, issues they're having, insecurities they're having, problems they're having, health, wealth, finances, relationships. Dude, I've had a lot of conversations in Landscaping Unlimited having nothing to do with bricks or grass or anything. It was about the individual, and they were just saying, hey, like, I need help with this thing. And you have the conversation. You got to be capable as a leader to do those things. And I don't know exactly where I learned that. I probably had great mentors. There's probably a part of this natural element to just how I think. But there's just a lot of like just observing people, seeing what I needed as a worker. I think that's one of the biggest things. You know, the way I parent is I remember what I needed as a kid. The way that I work as a leader at work is I remember what I needed when I wasn't the leader at work.
Yep.
What I wish the leader was doing when I was not the leader. And that's in every capacity I've worked in my professional career. Is like I'm taking the examples that I like and I'm going to replicate those. And there are some things I do that I hate. I'm going to do it that my own way. And then I bring that when I'm in that role. But if you never teach the person coming up, like back to the curse of knowledge, I made that decision. Like nobody told me to do that.
Yep.
I can't assume they're going to make that decision. I've got to
That's right.
tell them, hey, remember, now that you're here, you were here and you only had to worry about here problems. Up here, totally different problems you're dealing with.
Yep.
And so by teaching that and making it a priority in the discussions, and I would say for anybody watching, like, well, when do you do that? But you should be doing it all along.
That's right.
As you're starting to see the potential to be the leader, let them see some of the stuff you deal with. And so for our leaders watching you as you're running it from day to day, understanding how you balance the family with the customers, with the clients, with the great rewards of, hey, you're doing awesome, with the, hey, I don't like how you did this at all, you're failing. And it's like, you've got to balance all of that. And if they see it, they can start to learn, oh, pretty soon that's coming my way. I'll be ready for it. Yep. Instead of just throwing it to the wolves and saying, figure it out, because that's not how it works. It's got to be a skill that's developed and cultivated.
100%. I mean, it's in our DNA. We're all different. You know, we're not the same. And so to think that one training session or one leadership style will catch everyone in your company, well, that's false. There's no way that's going to happen. So you have to realize, like, all right, every leader that you're promoting, every person that you're putting in charge of a team, they have their own way of digesting information and comprehending it and understanding what it is that they need to do, which means they also have their own way of presenting it to the crew, which means that they also need to understand everyone on their crew, how they receive that information, so they can give it to them in a way that they understand it to be the most productive, and so that they comprehend the most information that they give out. For example, you know, right here we have my dog. If you're watching the video, my dog's chilling in the podcast. She's kind of like a little mascot, but this dog is awesome and doesn't really love affection, but she loves being outside, and she's very much snack driven. We had another dog. She wanted to be right in your face all the time. And so training those two dogs is way different. One of them wanted the rubs, one of them wanted the snacks. And so it's very much, you know, as simple as taking that same mentality and relating it to, well, training two dogs. One takes information differently than what the other one did. And employees are no different. I'm no different. You're no different. We all have our own ways of comprehending information. So you have to find out how that person receives that information so you can give it to them in a way that they understand. And in no way am I trying to relate everyone to a dog.
It works, though. Come on. If we all live more dog-like, it'd be a better world. They are pure animals.
Yep. So we've got our four bullet points here that we talked about. And so one was the fact that we do not spend enough time onboarding and in the orientation phase and making sure that the employees really know what it is that they're expected to do when they get to the job. Number two in our industry that we fail at is productivity versus training. You know, juggling that fine line of, man, we spend all our hours training and not enough being productive on the job. So, you know, you have to find that fine line, and every company is going to have their own way of doing that. There's no one size going to fit all for that either. It's very much region based. It's very much, you know, where your employees are coming from and the economics of where you're at. It's all different. The loss of hands-on expertise and experience and hands-on training, you know, bullet point number 3, where we're talking about everything being online versus actually just having hands-on experience, and how you need to blend those two together to really capture all of the training that, you know, is needed for your guys to be successful out there in the field, and for you to be successful as a business owner or as a project manager or just leader in general. You have to be able to figure out how to blend all that together so your guys know what to do. Number 4, the last bullet point that really hit me the most was inadequate leadership training. And so you got to make sure that, you know, you train your leaders and that your leaders can train your skilled craftsmen. Me personally coming up through, and why this one hit me so hard was because coming up in the ranks, you know, I was always told at one point, well, you don't have the experience, so you don't know. It's like, well, yeah, time could give me the experience to where I knew. However, if someone had actually trained me then we could have eliminated the amount of time it took because you trained me. And so, you know, as you move people up, just train them.
Accelerate it.
Yeah, that's right. Make sure you're giving them some nourishments so that they can succeed in what they do, rather than feeding them to the wolves. So I hope you guys like the podcast. Zach, you want to close us out here?
No, I mean, it was fantastic. It's a people business. We're focused on people again. And so as we go through these 4 points, understand we're looking at ourselves. You know, this is something we put out for everyone. We hope you guys are understanding and learning and applying on your own for sure. But this is also us having the conversation, and this sits in our heads the rest of the day. So after all these podcasts that you guys hear, like, we're talking about this. You know, we're thinking about it, making sure we're good at it, because who are we to talk about something that we're not actually doing? And so I enjoy the intangible conversations of things like leadership a lot. It's something that is super it's a subject I'm very keen of. I've read the books, I've watched the podcasts, I've really focused on this because I think it's something that helps you across the board. So if you're a better leader, you're a better father, you're a better husband, you're a better friend, you're a better worker. So like all that comes down to like understanding how to connect to people and how to be the example. Because at the end of it, you've got to lead yourself. If you can lead yourself well, then you can start working with others. So not until you're able to do that and understand why things work the way they work, not until you can really hone in on that, are you going to be as best as you can be in all those other roles that you fill. And so I've got a lot of titles that I carry. I want to be exceptional at all of them. And so to do that, I got to remember and humble myself to just be a student in all of them and continue to learn and grow. And so this podcast is just another notch in that totem pole that I'm climbing all the way up. It's like Mortal Kombat, man. Like every time I go up, like there's like another boss. I just keep going up higher and higher. And so like the next podcast will teach me something new. But I enjoyed this. I'm glad you found that list. And then again, if you guys have any questions, be sure to throw them out there. I mean, we're talking leadership here. There's no field that doesn't apply to. I mean, from entrepreneurship all the way to corporate America and anything between, especially military, places where you're kind of working arm in arm with people. You've got to lead like very much on the front lines. Ask the question if you don't know what's going on. We have quite a bit of experience here. We've got leaders of our own that are doing their thing that eventually are going to be on this podcast talking about their experience. And so this is just a cool thing. And it's kind of like, we're kicking off 2026 with a bang. We got a lot of momentum going.
Yep. So remember, lead by example. And also, if you want to see a change, be the change.